I'm going to show how I like to really control this position. So, first things first, right? I get my side control position to have the head control here. Now, a lot of times what tends to happen here is if we give up too much pressure or a disconnection from our hip, he's gonna frame on my hip, okay? So he gets his arm, he frames on my hip, and that's what's gonna help him create separation between my hip and his hip and allow him to create space between my shoulder and his face, and that's where the progression starts, okay? And I have to make sure that I deal with that issue at hand immediately. And the way that I do that is I just keep control of this arm. I come off my knees. I'm going to switch my hips into a Keisakatami position. And when I do this, my knee on this side collects the elbow here. Okay? See how I lift. Now I take my hand, I find a wrist, and I'm going to stiff arm. This is like a downward C grip or a thumb down grip. And I push. And when I push, I'm going to take my knee and I'm just going to replace and pin the bicep and wrist. Now, when I do this, you'll notice that you're gonna have control of this the best by keeping the top of your foot flat to the mat. If I stay on my toes here, he can turn his arm, pull his elbow out, things like that, okay? So you're gonna need to find a way to kind of sit back and pin that there. I like to kind of press the top of my foot through his arm into the mat, okay? Now my next transition here, I go back to the head, okay? And when I'm here, I don't like to keep my foot over here because now that I'm on his shoulders and chest, his hips have a little bit more ability to turn and twist. So a lot of times what happens, he'll try to fish step over and collect this leg, okay? That's good? So I'm always going to windshield wipe with my feet. So when I do this, it's never this. It's always replace, then staple, replace, staple, replace, staple, replace. I cross, and then I maneuver my foot off, okay? And I still have the head here. Now, once I'm here, I have the bicep and hand pinned. So then now I'm going to take my other arm. I'm gonna hug, connect my hands to my shoulders, okay, just like this. Now I'm just going to army crawl across his chest until I find the elbow. Now remember, it's essential that the elbow is in the pit of my arm. I have to make sure that it's there, okay? If I'm too low, I'm not gonna have a breaking point that I want. Not only that, but he can turn his elbow. So I want to isolate that elbow, okay? You see, if I go here, he can even kind of grab the back of my shoulder and keep this flex, and keep the strength in his arm here. So I have to kind of army crawl. You see, when I army crawl and I lean into this, it's like I'll take a nice big bite on the elbow with my arms, and I force his arm to go straight. Now I lift my chin up, and then I find the wrist. So now I have the same concept. Now, the point of the elbow is on the mat, not my forearm. This is the breaking point that we're talking about. This is a much bigger breaking point. This is not a big breaking point. Look at how far the arm can travel. If I'm up here, it travels way less, okay? And that's because I have a much tighter isolation on the elbow. And I never push, because when I push, I tend to lose my head connection. I like to lean into this to get the tap. So then what happens if he turns his thumb down? Well, if he turns his thumb down, my hand is going to trace the arm and find the tricep. I'm going to post, lift, and ratchet my forearm across his rib and diaphragm, okay? Now once I'm here, I'm going to replace my hand with my foot. Place my hand with my foot, and then drive him on his side. You see, when I do this, I push off of this foot, and I do this. And I'm pinching my knee to maneuver him more on his shoulder. And now that I'm here, you see how I lean into his hip. I'm not tall. A lot of times guys, they get real tall here first, and then they try to swim and control the arm. I'm gonna lean into this first. Make a little bit of space, switch, control my figure four, and I stay leaning into this grip. Once I lean into this grip, turn this way. Turn. Once I'm in this grip, I apply a lot of pressure behind the elbow, like I'm trying to punch his hand to the mat. He knows that I want to pull up, so even if he grabs something, more like your belt grip. If he goes to grab something and I do this, he's anticipating this. He's not anticipating forcing his hand to the mat. So I force it to the mat, and then what I like to do is I like to find the hand and the palm right here. right there. I'm gonna pinch that and squeeze. And now I lift. See that grip? That's the grip I want. There it is. Okay. It's almost like I'm forcing a throttle position. If I don't throttle, got a little bit more range of motion here. Go to my throttle. Okay. Done. So, side control. Push my hip, collect the frame. Kiss katami. Punch the arm, replace with my shin. Windshield wiper replace. Hug the arm, army walk forward. Grab the wrist, lean, tap. Turn his arm, post. This is the key right here, guys. Pull your forearm across his diaphragm. Look at that. That's tight pressure. I put the forearm and elbow into the floating rib right there. Now, I'm going to step and replace my hand. Then I push and collect. Get him on his side. Swim. Lean into it like I'm gonna punch his hand to the mat. Get my fingers in the palm. And then as I lift, I peel the hand to the sky. There's the tap. More. Okay, so now everything's still the same. Setup's still the same. Okay, I switch my hip, case tatami, I find the wrist, I pin the wrist, I staple, replace, and now I'm here. Okay. So we have the initial attack, which is straight arms Kimura. In that transition, you always have your straight arm bar as well. I'm not going to go over that part, but you guys, if you practice that transition, it's good to have all those options available to you. Okay. Now this one, a little more fancy. Okay. So keeping the arm pinned where it's at, I'm going to collect the head. Now remember how I use my foot to lift and bring him on his side. I'm gonna do the same thing with my left leg. So I'm gonna step, collect the arm, and lift. And as I lift, watch what I do with my foot. Toe, heel, toe, heel, toe, heel. Create a pillow for the head. Now, once I'm here, I'm going to bring my foot into this position. My heel goes to this side of his body as I bring my hip that way. And then I step over. And when I step over, you notice how I triangle my legs, okay? His head is on my leg. So now, I'm on my side, so I wanna make sure I sit up. When I get on my side, I'm gonna circle my hips to the top of his head, making sure that my hip and my belly button is facing the sky, not the sides. I'm not going like this. I wanna go like this. I wanna twist and twist. And once I get here, I'm grabbing my shin, I keep control of the arm, and I'm gonna grab my leg, pull my calf really tight into that armpit. Now I bring my leg over, and then I pull the arm across his face, and then I just squeeze my legs up and choke. So reverse triangle choke. Okay? Do it again.